So the judge has finally made his decision, and it seems like both 23XI Racing and Front Row will not get the relief they were hoping for. The legal battle over NASCAR charters continues to shape headlines. So, what does Judge Kenneth Bell's ruling actually mean for the teams? Let's find out in today's special episode. 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports' main fight was to regain charter status for this season and to prevent NASCAR from reallocating their old charters to other organizations. This dispute has been running for several months, creating waves not only inside the racing community, but also in the wider sports business world. The decision on this injunction and the discussion around the fastest lap rule in NASCAR has shaped the ongoing conversation about fairness, competition, and the way the sport should be governed moving forward. Judge Kenneth Bell's decision came after NASCAR assured the court that they would set aside 6 charters until next season. The promise meant that NASCAR would not rush to reassign those specific charters to other teams for 2025. Instead, they would keep them on hold while the larger legal case continued. NASCAR's assurance seemed to be the key factor that influenced Judge Bell's ruling. He emphasized that temporarily creating charters 37 through 40 would not cause any irreparable harm to the plaintiffs. In his words, NASCAR had agreed to maintain the status quo by holding back the additional charters. With this in place, Bell felt there was no urgent reason to grant the injunction. As a result, both 23XI and Front Row Motorsports will now be stuck running as open teams for the rest of the 2025 season. The practical impact of this decision is quite significant. In NASCAR's Cup Series, being an open team instead of a chartered one comes with clear disadvantages. For instance, charters guarantee spots in every race of the season, while open teams must qualify on speed. This adds more pressure on the drivers, crews, and sponsors because a poor qualifying run could keep them out of the main event. In a sport where sponsorship exposure is critical, the risk of missing even a single race can affect a team's financial health. Both 23XI Racing and Front Row had argued that without guaranteed charter status, their sponsors might walk away. Considering that sponsorship deals can be worth millions of dollars per season, the threat of financial instability was a big concern. Judge Bell acknowledged these risks, but still determined that NASCAR's decision to hold charters in reserve was enough to prevent immediate damage. Another part of Judge Bell's ruling attracted attention because of the way he addressed NASCAR's argument that charters had been issued for free. NASCAR has repeatedly defended itself by claiming that these teams receive something of high value without direct monetary payment. However, Bell made it clear that while teams may not have handed over cash directly to NASCAR for these charters, the agreements came with obligations. Teams had to commit to multiple responsibilities, such as sponsor exclusivity, giving NASCAR rights to their intellectual property and fulfilling operational duties. These requirements were costly, even if they weren't in the form of a simple purchase price. The judge described NASCAR's claim as at a minimum misleading, suggesting that NASCAR's portrayal of charters being free wasn't fully accurate. This footnote in the ruling could become important later when the case heads to trial, as it hints that the court is not entirely convinced by NASCAR's framing of the charter system. For now, the ruling means that the antitrust case continues to loom in the background. The December trial date could still change everything if the teams win. If the system itself survives legal scrutiny and the teams are found to have been unfairly treated, then the possibility exists that they might regain their lost charters. But if NASCAR successfully defends its system, then their charter model will remain firmly in its hands, giving them broad authority over team membership and competition structure. Either way, this case could redefine the business side of NASCAR for years to come. It also raises questions about how much control NASCAR as a sanctioning body should have compared to the teams who invest heavily in competing. Beyond the courtroom, another debate has emerged regarding NASCAR's rules, specifically the fastest lap bonus point. This rule, introduced in 2025 across the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series, awards 1 regular season point to the driver who sets the fastest single lap in a race. It is not a playoff point, only a standard point, but in a sport where playoff qualification can be determined by as little as 1 to 2 points, the impact is real. The idea behind the rule was to reward speed and give drivers an incentive even if they're not leading laps or battling for the win. However, the rule has not worked exactly as NASCAR may have envisioned. There have already been at least 3 notable Cup Series races where the fastest lap was recorded by a driver who had crashed, fallen many laps behind, or gone to the garage for repairs. Kyle Larson, for example, had his team repair a damaged car at Watkins Glen in Darlington, and in both of those cases, the car came back on track with fresh tires and no pressure from traffic. Under these conditions, Larson's car was able to record a very fast single lap, earning the bonus point despite being far out of contention for the race itself. Similarly, Josh Berry wrecked on lap 1 at Darlington, spent over 100 laps in the garage, and then returned to the track to set the fastest lap of the race. This outcome struck some as odd, because a car that was essentially out of the race still managed to gain an official advantage. NASCAR's communications director, Mike Ford, recently admitted that the organization is reviewing this rule for possible adjustments in 2026. He suggested that NASCAR might consider requiring the driver to be on the lead lap, or at least not too many laps down, in order to qualify for the fastest lap point. That would prevent situations like Berry's at Darlington, where a car completely out of the race still picked up the bonus. However, some fans and commentators believe this potential rule change is unnecessary. They argue that the fastest lap point, as it currently stands, gives struggling teams something to fight for even after their race has been ruined. While NASCAR debates this, there's another discussion happening, and that is about race length. A quote by Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali made headlines when he suggested that F1 races might be a bit too long for younger fans. Considering F1 races last only around 90 minutes on average, many people found that statement surprising. Motorsport.com even compared the average race lengths between NASCAR, IndyCar, and F1. Formula One races are less than half as long as most NASCAR Cup events, yet there's talk of making them shorter. That caused laughter among NASCAR fans because if a 90-minute race feels too long, what does that say about a NASCAR race that often stretches over 3 hours? In truth, NASCAR races are much longer. The Daytona 500, for example, regularly lasts over 3.5 hours. The Coca-Cola 600, the longest race on the schedule, can easily push past 4 hours, and even regular events like Richmond or Kansas often stretch into the 3-hour and 15-minute range. Compared to other sports, that's a long time. If NASCAR were to aim for that 2.5-hour mark, it could mean reducing the number of laps at certain tracks. Now, whatever your thoughts are on the current situation, just write them down below, and while you're down there, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well.